I am Angela.
That's what I love.
Mr. Mallard. Join me as always, Mr. Chief of Morale himself, Bud Copeland. Bud, how are you this evening before we go?
So the point being is, good golfers are fucking dime a dozen, and we saw it in full swing that the line of demarcation between.
Are you ready, Bud? Are you ready for the players? Are you ready to make money? Are you ready to try to beat them?
I didn't do my homework this week.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Divots and Pivots, kicking off Tea Time Tuesday here at the Fantasy Sports Corporation. The boys over at Plus Money Golf will be joining us later at 10 o'clock, as always. I'm sure they got a lot of fun things to say about everything going on today. And much like kind of history and the way it always goes, anytime there's anything going on with Canada that we want to talk about Canada, such as the RBC Canadian Open this week, it gets overshadowed. And that's a shame because God, Canada's great. It doesn't get enough respect, but poor Canada.
Poor Canada.
Bud, how are you?
Morale's high. I went out and ate some humble pie this morning for breakfast at Andover Country Club. Like I told you just before we got started, if I eliminate 3 putts and balls out of bounds off the tee, I dropped 10 strokes and I still missed the cut by a couple because these guys were really, really good. But I putt very, very well today, except for those aforementioned 2-3 putts.
Well, that's like me saying if I cut out pizza and beer, I'll lose 20 pounds, but I just know I'm not going to do it. So
I actually had a good idea. I'm sitting at the score as we're walking up to the scorer's tent. And I overhear the guys in front of us, like trying to explain away, like, man, I was this close. And I mean, I think he shot like 81 or something like that, which he probably was, throughout the course of the day. That's not a lot, these tiny little changes can.
It's one bad shot here or there that turns into 2 shots or 3 shots. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trending in the right direction. But I just had the idea. I was like, they should just they should plant a microphone right there, record all this bullshit, all the excuses we give, all the cliche, reasoning for not playing good golf, and just splice it together and call it the Ifs and Buts podcast. But we made the turn, and I actually made the turn. And I think it was like 2 over. So I was actually doing pretty well. And then I started snap hooking off the tee and I couldn't fix it. We make the turn and there's a backup on the second tee, started on the back. And as we all pull out our phones, and I finally reconnect with the world, which is probably what screwed me up. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I should have just tried to stay focused.
Just
somehow.
like everyone else, blame Liv. I love it.
I'm going to blame Liv. No, don't shit on my Liv. Don't yuck my yum. Oh my God, Brandel Chambly is on Golf Channel Live right now. You know how badly I want to listen to this.
I know.
So anyways, we pull out our phones.
He wants to listen to us. Let's be real.
You heard like 15 people across 3 different holes and tee boxes just being like, what the fuck? It broke. It shattered the golf world. There's, and I want to say golf world versus the game, because that's a critique I do have that we'll get into in a little bit.
Yes.
And then we went about our business, just not playing good off the tee, but everything from about 150 yards in is dialed in. I just got to figure out the damn tee ball. And we got the pub links coming up in 3 weeks. Got the mid-am about a month after that. So there's some more opportunities for Boudreaux to get out there.
Yeah. So if you're following along, many updates to come with Bud and his
quest,
the qualifier here.
Yeah. Thank you. Chasing the queue.
Yes. There we go. That rolls off the tongue.
Because all these fuckers are out there on social media, quest for 90, quest for 80. And I'm like, okay, I like it. I'm a goals oriented kind of guy. So we're chasing the queue all summer. But dude,
well, let's save the emotions, because we need. There's a lot of emotions, and we know if we get started on that road right now.
Canada. Back to poor Canada.
Yeah.
COVID gets them for 2 years. And then Rory has a big win last year at this Canadian designers course. They're on the real. This comes down, but we can't overlook little brother. This is their national Open. It's like the 3rd oldest behind the U.S. and the Open, and it's really one of the only tour stops that does not return to the same course every year. I mean, if you think about it, it's their national Open, so it's got like a rotation, and this year's host, the Canadian Open. Where the hell are they? It's like
So tell me what you think about Oakdale, because they're at Oakdale, and
Oakdale Golf and Country
Oakdale's
Club.
Interesting because if you're a member over Fantasy National, if you use Fantasy National, Oakdale is actually one of the few courses not in their system to look it up. So you had to get a little creative when looking up your course information this week. So tell me, what do you think about Oakdale from your experience and in reviewing it?
First thing I'm going to tell you is the reason it's not in there is because it's a composite course. It's a country club that has 3 nines. And so the front 9 that we're going to see this weekend is made up of like 4 holes from 2 different sets of 9. And then they are going to play a back 9, a complete 9. And so look for that, look for people who can go on runs and streaks going down that back 9. Cause what I've been reading is that the front 9, it feels made up and put together, kind of like they do at the country club. They just kind of reroute things to make it a challenging run. And, we'll see how it goes. But not a really long course. 200 par 72.
Well, and even the whole composition, like you said, feels made up because there's only 3 par 5s. Your typical 4, so it's definitely shorter. There's a lot. There's an extra par 4 in there than most courses. So calling it a shorter course is definitely fair here. It's interesting because I think it's going to bring, at least in my research, it brought together a different animal of a course than what we've been seeing for the past month or so. Some outliers of things that we need to be looking at to get around here, because the rough is rough here. Like the rough puts the word to good use.
Yeah, the Northeast has got that thick, sticky bluegrass type shit that I wasn't used to that growing up in Florida. We had some different kind of rough. So anyways, real quick, let's do this. Like we said, the course is not overwhelmingly long. It's a lot of par 4s, which I'm going to tell you right now, there it is. Strokes gained par 4, strokes gained approach, and strokes gained putting. Because strokes gained approach basically is the best tell of how you're playing, or, really where you stand. It's the one singular variable you can kind of rely on. Strokes gained putting, because things I've been reading is that's the kind of only comment coming back, is that these greens are tricky and take, quote unquote, some getting used to. Then obviously, like we just said, there's only 3 par 5s, and they fill in that other, with a par 4. So strokes gained par 4 overall, because these are short par 4s, but they're tricky. They're angular. So those are my 3, and I do like what it spit out. It spit out it's not overwhelmingly balanced. It's a little top heavy, but enough that gives some choices. And I like a Canadian this week.
So we'll get to that, because I want to see who that Canadian is. I have a feeling I know who it is.
I got a couple of them.
But what's interesting, because you kind of hit it on the head there, that this is, so my model spit out chalky, but not top heavy from a price standpoint. My top 10 is filled with guys, at least 2 guys from every price range. But unfortunately, the majority of my top 10 is also very chalky. So obviously, the way I set up my model this week is the way everyone else set up their model this week. But you nailed it in breaking down the course, because it's not very long, but the rough is hard to get out of. So for me, I agree. Strokes gained putting, strokes gained approach. Like I said, that's been on my radar all year round. But because that rough is so brutal, fairways gained is one that I'm going to as well as birdie or better, because I think I think these guys are good enough to be able to, honestly, I don't expect a lot of drivers off the tee this week. I think with the way this course is set up, they're
going to pick a number they're comfortable with, and they're going to try to get to that number from a good angle.
They're going to be playing precision shots. So I think they're going to be putting themselves in positions where they're going to be able to score. So if you have a guy who's good at birdie or better and good at putting, like those are the guys you're looking for. And then the other stat I'm going with, my 5th stat, is proximity from 100 to 125. Once again, because of how they're going to be setting up their shots, this seems like it's going to be a lot of wedge approaches, which is going to allow these guys to get dialed in, shoot darts, and leave themselves with some short putts.
All right. And I'm laughing over here because I said I want a Canadian to win. And I look at my top 10, and half of them are Commonwealth guys, British, Irish, English. But then sitting at 11 is Adam Hadwin. That's the Canadian hope. Again, his wife is a hilarious follow on any social media platform. But I love who my model spit out on the top. So if you want, we can just run down our top 10 and then dive right into the story du jour. Because at this point, if you're still listening, God bless you. But
don't worry, we're coming with the stories, guys. We're just
my top 10 go Tyrrell, and I'm going to go ahead and play them. Tyrrell Hatton does not let me down. But Tyrrell Hatton, Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood, Eric Cole, Sam Ryder, Thigala, Rory McIlroy. and Brendan Todd and Ben Martin. And
Sure.
all of those names are familiar. We know my love-hate relationship with Brendan Todd. I poo-pooed Rory at 11-5 after that mental falling apart. How, and by the way, have we done a wellness check on him? Brandel Chambly is going to be fine. He thrives on this shit.
There's so many guys we need to do wellness checks on.
But
that should have been a whole
those are my top.
And
like I said, there's a lot of Commonwealth guys in there, and there's a good balance. I do have, a plethora of 9K and a smattering of 7K, so I can build a decent little lineup relying on my math.
Yeah. I think you can, and look, we have a lot of crossovers in my top 10 because, like I said, my top 10 has a lot of variance as far as price range goes, but a lot of chalky guys. There's a few values in here, and I'm going to point them out to you. But my top 10 in this order actually starts off with Ben Martin at 7,300, around 15% owned. That's still, for that price and that ownership, considering he's number one on my model, he's probably going to be in all my lineups. That's good enough for me there. But then Tyrrell Hatton at 10-2, super chalky, around 23% owned. Number two in my model, though, he's just playing too good right now, and especially at this course, he sets up perfect for, so you can't ignore that. Justin Rose, 9,700 at number three. I think he's actually the highest owned person. He's close to 25%, which is outrageous, so you're not going to see me owning much of him. But at number four, I'm going to be going back to a guy that came through for me last week in making the cut at the price he was at, but then fell apart on the weekend for me where he didn't necessarily get me a lot of points, but he still helped me, and side note here, carry me to another win over you. We got the streak going here, but Ches Reavie ranks out number 4 in my model. Like I said, he went even the first 2 rounds this past week. He looked good, but then he completely fell apart on the weekend. And really bottomed out the amount of points he got me. But he's at 7,100, 8% projected ownership. He, believe it or not, he is the number 1 ranked putter over the last 24 rounds in this field.
I believe it.
So I'm gonna take that. He's top 25 in approach, and top 35 in fairways gained. So I like Ches Reavie again, especially at that 8% ownership. Then I have Corey Connors at number 5. I have Eric Cole as well at number 6. Matt Kuchar at number 7. Matt Kuchar is interesting here. 9,100 feels like a bit much for Matt Kuchar, considering where he's been this season.
Though.
But when you look at the field, but when you look at the field, it makes sense. But still, at 9,100, no disrespect at all. But for under 8% projected ownership, and considering a guy who was money with his wedges, which I've already said I think is going to be a key stat you got to have this week. Matt Kuchar feels like a nice play this week, ranking out number 7 in my model. So 9,100, I think I'm going to be playing a lot of Matt Kuchar. Carson Young, ranking out number 8. Chesson Hadley, number 9. Chesson Hadley, 6,600, around 2% ownership.
I mean, he's top 30 in my model as well. He's going to get a look or two.
Yeah, he's number 10 in putting in the field and number 9 in that wedge range, that 100 to 125 range. So he could be a big-time sleeper this week and a big ownership leverage play. And then my number 10 guy, which I would like to actually agree with you and swap out for my number 11 guy, because Sam Burns ranks out number 10 for me. Sam Burns is someone I just have not had the confidence to play at all this year.
He found it last week.
So I know he found it,
yeah,
and I get that. But around for 10-5 at 15% ownership, ranking 10th in my model, I don't think I'm going to do it for that. I'd rather go down to at 7,900 for around 9% ownership in Brendan Todd. Ranks 11th in my model. I'd rather have him come in at number 10.
This feels like a Brendan Todd golf course. All you got to do is just that really long, sling it out there, 250, find a green, make a bunch of putts. I got 2 value plays to keep an eye on. You know how I love strokes gained home life. And yesterday,
hell yeah,
we thought yesterday was the longest day in golf, but it was the final qualifier for the U.S. Open.
I've seen that joke so many times.
I know, but it's true. There's 2 guys who punched their ticket to the LA Country Club, Ryan Armour and Dylan Wu, and both of them
Dylan Wu. Yes.
Right? Both of them rank out top 50 in my model. But
ring that bell.
But Dylan Wu is going to get some love because it's $7,000, and if he's playing well, and a lot of times you come off that confidence boost is all they need. Again, the line of demarcation between tour pro, winner, and legend is very thin, but it's hard to break.
Yep. No, I love the
that was
Dylan.
poetic. All right.
I love the Dylan Will call. The only other name I'm going to throw out there for you that could be a sleeper who I'm actually surprised is ranked this low, but I guess that's just a sign of kind of the season he's had. But Sam Ryder at only 7,000. This feels like a week where he could surprise and show up.
I think I have him.
He ranks out 13th in my model, around 3 to 4% ownership. So
he's sixth in my model. Him and Eric Cole are both going to get some love. Although I think Cole's going to be chalky for a 7,900. Although nobody gets chalky at 7,900.
No one gets chalky there. And also don't sleep on one of my favorites. Always Adam Svensson.
All right.
8,500. Don't sleep on him.
Fuck off. All right. This is a very explicit episode, but that's because emotions are running high. Do we need to run an ad or anything before
we do? Let's hear from Underdog, and then you're going to hear all of our emotions on all the news because we got some big feelings. We got some big bangs to bring, and we're going to bring them hard. We'll see you in a little bit.
Underdog Fantasy is here to save your post-fantasy football season blues. The easiest place to play and win with the Underdog Fantasy app. Get up to 20 times your money in a single night with our Pick'em contests. Grab some insurance when setting your picks and win even when one pick fails. Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. Sit Gingerbread, good girl.
You know what, Gingerbread? Tonight, do not sit, Gingerbread. Stand up. Let us hear you. Look, I want you to possibly... Do you need to bring me down to earth here? This is what I want to know. Do you need to bring me down to earth with what I'm about to say here?
Oh, God. No, absolutely not.
Am I wrong in saying that this might be... No, I'm not even going to say might. Am I wrong in saying that this is the biggest piece of golf news in the history of golf to drop?
In the modern era, yes. I think the last time something this big happened in the game was when Jack and the boys sued and started.
It's the only thing you can compare it to. I feel like.
I don't even know where we start. First of all, the people on Golf Central. I mean, everybody's got their feelings and their emotions. Quit talking about the game. The game is fucking fine. It's a sport. It's a game. Yeah. My 18 holes this morning,
nothing is happening with these guys making all their money.
That's what I meant by say the golf world. Because honest to goodness, outside of our golf bubble, this is not, nobody gives a shit about this. We're golf heads for a reason. But what we saw was a corporate takeover. What we saw was a business entity who wanted, oh no, I'm not going to make that comparison, but it was a very involuntary partnership. If you're sitting in the PGA Tour seat, because you just got, it was like an assault of millions of soldiers on your platoon of 50. You're in a weak financial position because coming out of COVID, that was tough losses there in the infrastructure that you put in down in Ponte Vedra, the new headquarters, and then also that fucking massive clubhouse. They're still paying off. You move golf, you're in that position. And so if it's a money game, you can't keep up. You've got 50 partners throughout the world that are cobbling together a war chest, and they've all got their own, internal interests. Meanwhile, your competitor just has pits of money. They print money. Like money is not an object in the world that they live in.
And they just took over.
So they made a play and they just put the money out there. And I'm not talking about buying the players. I'm talking about just being able to sustain a competitive product until Brooks Koepka wins the PGA Tour. And that's all it took, folks. I saw that they had the public investment fund guy on CNBC with Jay. And he was like,
I'm never gonna get his name right. It was the guy that I forget his name now. Sorry, I thought I had
his name. He's the public investment fund guy. But the way he was explaining it was like, we met in London, we played golf, we had lunch, we talked.
But Zach met with him. Didn't Zach meet with him? Like he told us all about him when we had Zach on from the New Yorker.
Oh no,
he's the same guy that he's the guy.
This is the guy that Zach met with. Yeah. And anyway. And so he's talking about this. If a live player doesn't win a major, we're good, because all it took was a chink in the armor, and it's like, okay, now all of a sudden, well, what is this live thing? Or God, they really do. They were the only thing that PGA Tour was winning was the kind of public relations battle, because and they had a much more engaging product. But all of a sudden, if the threat becomes true, and this other, all it takes is that perception. and they'll join forces. I don't know how I feel about it because I don't really know if I give a shit about, it's like, okay, cool. This is exciting. It's new. My life's no different. I understand why some people are upset, but at the end of the day, it's just, it is just business. But I'm curious. You said something before about the players. And
yeah, that's
the
my
players meeting that just got out.
Yeah, so here's my biggest issue with this is that
I have no issues.
Okay, so that's interesting.
I'm Team J.
Because when I'm
wearing my live shirt. I think it's going to be fine.
Before all the details started coming out, when I just first read like the quick 2-paragraph release that they had, like when it first got announced, my initial response was, this is a win for the PGA in the sense that this was the live tour realizing that they can't compete. They can't coming back to the table. They know that they're at their time limit is maxed based on their player contracts. So they know 80% of their biggest names after their 5-year contracts are going to leave them. Like that's what it felt like at the initial onset of the news, was that this was Liv coming to the table saying, we want to be long. We want to sustain our longevity here in some way and have a piece in the PGA. And it felt like what it was that a win for the PGA in that they now just got a massive investor to push a lot of money into their product. Then as the details started coming out and you realize, no, what this really is that they've now created this whole for-profit commercial side of the PGA Tour that the PIF is now basically the majority shareholders of and completely control and are just going to flood with money.
PGA Tour is going to maintain administrative control over whatever this thing is. Jay Moynihan is going to be the CEO.
What does administrative control mean to money control? Really? We've seen how this works already.
So for whatever reason, the Public Investment Fund, I think, wanted to, they're an investment fund. Golf's a great product, and if you can't partner with somebody, then you compete with them until you either kick their ass or they realize we can't keep this up.
See, and that's why I feel like this. This is why the conclusion I came to at the end of all this, and I put this out on Twitter, was that this has started to feel like that the PIF never gave a shit about making Liv into anything to stand on its own. No. Liv was their ticket to get into the door, to ruffle some feathers, to piss some people off, because their ultimate goal was to always have a hand in the PGA Tour and ultimately now what we see, worldwide golf.
So if the best 150 players keep going out every week, though, next year, and we're back to the best 150 players again.
Yeah.
If the best of the best are going out every week now, although remember this new revised schedule of no cut events, and although Jack kind of leaked that earlier this year, and then he had to backpedal at his press conference and be like, I don't know how serious that is. But anyways, if we're back to that best 150 and they go out and they play 72 holes of golf at world-class courses against one another, are you going to watch?
Yeah.
Then
that's why I agree with you. It doesn't change me and you, like you and I.
But I get the players, and so I understand the players being upset. But I also, but at the same time, it's no different. It was a calculated risk. That's why Jay first of all, that's why he did it, here at the RBC Canadian. Although that's neither here nor there. I think timing was just timing. So he does that. He's going to take flack for it. And it's like, it's the same thing that Brooks and Phil and all those guys did. We don't, we're going to play the long game. We'll take these 5-year deals and then we'll see where we are. And if we're not allowed back, we got a nice bankroll. So for example, the road back, we'll get to that in a second. And so Jay made they made these calculated moves, and these 4 people who were in the room doing it, nobody else, you're not entitled. You put the commissioner in this position to make these decisions. That's why these chief executives are executives, because you get paid to make the decision. Now they can choose whether or not they want to consult with people. And sometimes they understand that, we don't know who knew what, but maybe even the top people didn't know shit. Otherwise this leaks.
Nobody knew anything. You said it. You already said it. The four
we still don't know anything.
Reports are that Greg Norman didn't even know about this.
Right, but and we still don't know anything. Like, so what is this new for-profit entity? I have some thoughts. Is this going to be, so basically now one of the biggest gripes, by the way, Phil, and this ties into Phil, because one of Phil's biggest gripes was we don't own it's kind of like a name, image, and likeness. They almost have the same argument as college athletes. You're making money off of my name, image, and likeness, and I deserve a cut. And so it's like every time I'm hitting a golf shot, I can't use that footage without your permission, or I don't know how it works. Anyway, what if this new for-profit entity is just that? It's going to be this massive pile of money that they can, if you earn so many impressions or whatever, then you get bonused on it. I mean, they just turn these guys into YouTube stars.
Yeah, if it trickles back to the players, then we're gonna stop hearing any gripes about this, and that's the bottom line. Because my biggest thing here is that I think what this does is this finally kind of ends the charade of one of the biggest farces in sports, in that the PGA Tour is a player-run tour. It's sure. They put Jay Moynihan in charge and they have a big say, but I think we've all known for a long time now that it's not the players making the decisions here. It's the board they put in charge. So, but this, I think, finally puts that to rest. Right. And that's the business bed that they chose to go. Like that's what they chose. They
claim to be independent contractors, right? That's their whole thing. Okay.
So the truth is being shown on the business model of what a professional golfer is what this is. It's that yes, they're independent contractors, but the whole charade of the PGA being this idealistic player-run business can finally be to bed, because I think the fact that they were all left in the dark, even in the LIV player tours, we're also left in the dark here. Like that's gone. That charade is disappeared.
But no league is player run. It's
player. But exactly. That's why it was an idealistic perspective.
Whoever had that idealistic perspective
it's been out there for years, is what I mean. I'm not saying I did, but
I mean, I don't even know what that means, because every league has that, right? You've got player committees. You've got, like at the NBA, if David Silver wants to make an announcement, he might ring up LeBron just to take a pulse check. But he also
wouldn't you agree that, like, over the years, Jay Moynihan was probably the least known professional sports commissioner out of all of them? Like, everyone
outside of the NHL, but he's the golf commissioner. Of course, he's
but what I'm saying is because even though you brought up the NFLPA and the baseball, all of these other player organizations, they're always the commissioner of those sports is still the loudest voice heard, even though the players are all back room. But the PGA has always been a little bit more. The players are a little bit more on the front end. We don't hear much from Jay, but now it's just very clear.
He was attacked.
Yeah,
he was attacked.
Yeah.
So I'm Team Jay. I love this. Sure. I think it's a smart move. I think it's taking control of the situation. It's making the best of a shit sandwich, right? It's like, you know what? We just have to eat it. We have to chow it down because it's coming whether we like it or not. So can I have some hot sauce, please? He's going to get this for-profit, money pit to do whatever with. And here's a question: maybe LIV isn't over. What if?
So I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
But I think it might turn into the fall series. I think that, especially because the weather gets dicey here in the States, so you make it global and you go to nice, warm, tropical places, and you have 8.
All of a sudden, we have a Dubai swing.
No, see, that's the other thing is I think the PGA Tour is not. I don't think the PGA Tour proper is going to go global. I think it'll stay North American, and really in the United States, we have a Canadian thing. We got something down in the Bahamas, the Mexico.
Yeah, but they're limited outside of the continental,
right? And I think that will continue. 49. But what if it's almost like to get to East Lake, instead of the top 30, they expanded to the top 48. Or if you make it to East Lake, you're guaranteed a spot on one of these teams. And then the last 14 or 18 positions are filled with captain's picks, that kind of shit. They really, here's the thing that people are upset with. And I've come not full circle, but I almost feel bad for Phil. It's almost like,
bad. Never feel bad for Phil.
No, because he's delusional.
He is delusional. He's
right
up there with Greg Norman now. That's just going to be his legacy.
And it's almost one of those things where we've talked about it before. This change was probably coming no matter what. And all it needed was a catalyst. Yep. Did it have to be it this way? Do you have to be a jackass about it?
But it sped it up, and it's not bad that it got sped up.
But I think you're going to see him almost with a Christ complex now. Like, yes, I died on this cross for you. Like, so
Yeah.
his way back, they did give a hypothetical. Jay did talk about, yes, we've talked about this and what it might look like. So, for example, Phil, I think it was 200 million, and he got 100 million up front, and the rest was going to be over a 3-year contract. Yeah. So he's already got, whatever is due in that contract. Basically, they're going to make these guys just forfeit their contracts to come back to the PGA Tour. And that's where I think,
which isn't even guaranteed.
No, it's not.
They did
say they're going to figure out a way back.
The wording they used in the initial announcement was that there was going to be a fair reapplication process to either the PGA or DP World Tour, which, like you're kind of alluding to here, it's just
going to be different for each guy. They did say that it's probably going to be depending on circumstances. They also might factor in things like if you're a major champion, then you don't have to sit out the year that they might be suspending guys, or they might just be saying you can't play in the FedEx Cups. So there's going to be a lot of different ways for these guys to come back, just like we said there would. And I think that Brooks was that catalyst. Winning did kind of sped it up, because I don't think Jay Monahan wants to.
That's clear now.
I don't think they were going to lose business or maybe sponsors to Live. Again, I think it was just from a business sense. It was probably, legal fees. They were also
I think they wanted to stop fighting.
Have to turn over like cell phone records and shit. You don't want to open up your books too much. So I think this was it was not a tourniquet, but pretty much a tourniquet.
Well, here's what needs to be bleed. And here's what needs to be clear about this is that there hasn't been any word about what's going to change competitively yet. Right. This has all just been from a business side so far today, as far as everything that's come out. Also, it's been very clear that nothing is going to change with this 2023 season. Any changes we might see won't be until the 2024 season next year. So Liv has already said the Liv schedule for this year is going to play out as planned for the 2023 season. So I expect the PGA as well, the DP as well. Everything's going to stay as is this year. We'll see what next year brings from a competitive standpoint, if there's any big changes. What has been kind of bugging me today is that not bugging, but more so confused me, because I don't get it. And maybe it's just like, I get it from the standpoint that these Live players who took the bag, took the money, now get to have their cake and eat it too. Massive win for them. It works out great for them, because they're going to be able to come back one way or another and have the best of both worlds. But there's been a lot of victory lapping for the Live Tour today. And I don't necessarily see this as a win for the Live Tour specifically. Like, this just seems like, okay, like, yeah, sure. Like, but what the main thing Live Tour lovers and supporters have been calling for is the official World Golf Rankings. That's what they've wanted. There's been no talk about the official World Golf Rankings in this proposal.
Again, that might not change. This deal.
That might not, exactly. That might not change. Nothing might change about that at all. I don't see where, other than the fact that they got to keep all this money, I don't see where the victory lapping is called for with Live players and or Live supporters, because this doesn't necessarily feel like a win for Live specifically. Like, I don't see this as a Live win over PGA.
Not over. Nobody, like,
yeah. Nobody's beat anybody here. This just seems like
I think it just feels icky, because
this seems like let's stop fighting, let's lay down our arms, and let's just figure out what's best so that we all make money kind of deal.
By the way, that would be sentiments between these four people who made this deal. As you pointed out, it's the quote that they're running with on Golf Central from their insider guy was a 90-10 split of people pissed off, and then 10 people who like didn't say we're happy, but like understood. And then when one of the players called for new leadership, everybody clapped and everybody stood up and everything like that. First of all, we haven't heard from Jack Nicklaus. We haven't heard from T. Gray. We haven't heard from some of these.
We have heard from Jay after you're done, I want to get to it, because we have heard from Jay out after the player meeting that he had in Toronto today. We've heard from him.
And you know what he said? I love his reasoning. Well, I made decisions based on the information that I had at the time.
Yeah,
okay, great.
So now what cop out? Like,
well, no, I just want to know. Okay, so what information what changed?
Well, that's why I mean it's a cop out, because we've all known this information. Nothing's changed. I don't.
By information, it could have been the accounting department going, "Excuse me, sir. We're gonna bleed out here in about 18 months, or not even, whatever it might be. We got to figure something out." So this huge, and that's the other thing, is like this huge injection of capital. To get this, it probably is just going to be like for whatever you need. I don't know how they're going to figure it out I mean, I guess the business people might work it out. But if I'm Will Zalatoris and I turn down 130 million,
Yeah.
although at the end of the day, business is business, right? This is what.
Yeah, but how
this
can
is
you
what
not
we're
be
talking
pissed
about.
as a player, not only being left in the
Well,
dark
you'd
with
be
this
pissed.
decision, but also
No,
having.
I'm saying about
Yeah.
whether or not there's a responsibility to then say, here's your little cut since you took one on the chin for us.
Which is not going to happen.
No,
That
it's
ain't going to
not.
happen.
Not in a monetary matter. It's going to
No.
be that maybe there's the formation of a players union. That kind of maybe all of a sudden PGA Tour is going to unionize, and there we go, and we're off to the races. We're talking about you get your game checks, or you get whatever you win on the field, but outside of that, all of a sudden it's like in the NBA, you get
Which
a
I don't see
percentage
how
of the TV contracts, and then it just grows from there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which
I doubt that's where it's
could.
going.
I don't see how they could do that without giving up their whole
Like minor league, major league.
like we are independent contractors. You can't unionize and still be independent contractors. I feel like in this case, if you're gonna unionize, you got to sign contracts with the PGA. That's what the PGA is going to ask for in return. Is you're signing contracts with us that hold you to certain obligations, and there's like.
They
in the golf
that,
world,
to have these guys have to play in a certain number of events. They have to play.
Sure, but it's we've already seen how that can be manipulated, though.
No, and I'm not saying I want them to, or I actually think they will. But I mean, that's one of these the fact that we don't know anything other than these guys said, let's work together.
We only know the money right now. That's all we know.
We're not. Who cares? I mean, it's one of those things. All I want to know is what's the schedule like next year,
exactly,
and what happens with Liv.
I want to know the competition. That's what I am so curious to know now. I want to know. Does this mean we have team events coming? Does this mean we have 3-round events coming?
What happens to Tiger? What happens to Tiger and Rory's venture?
Is that now?
I don't think so. I think everybody's going to be able to. I think they're really just trying to make a way for everybody to have their cake and eat it too, because there's so much money to be made from this.
So here's a fun segue here then to something I know you were very passionate about this weekend. So the PGA, LIV, the DP World Tour, they all make this business decision. We're gonna just leave it there for now. They're all doing it in the name of growing the game globally. That's literally what they've said.
Yeah.
What about the LPGA? It completely not now. Granted, yes, the PGA is a male tour, the DP Tour is a male tour, the LIV is a male tour. But if you're gonna do something in the name of growing the game, and you're gonna do it on such a massive scale as this type of merger, how do you leave the LPGA out, especially coming off a weekend where history was made with Zhang in her professional debut, winning a tournament in playoff fashion? How does this happen to where the LPGA is just left by the wayside? I know the answer. Here's the thing. I already know the answer, and the answer is money. The answer is that the LPGA just doesn't bring in the money the PGA, the DP World Tour, the LIV Tour brings in. So I know the answer, but just from a logistical standpoint, if you're going to speak in growing the game globally, how is the LPGA just left out of anything without there even being a consideration of some sort of women's golf angle to this merger?
Maybe they're not left out of it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to pull up. They came out and said, as we have consistently said, a fractured ecosystem is not good for the game, and we look forward to learning what today's announcement means for the growth and impact of global golf. We remain focused on growing the LPGA, continuing to work with the top partners in the world to provide the best opportunity for our membership and to make sure that everything we do continues to allow us to inspire, elevate, and advance opportunities for girls and women on and off the golf course.
You know what that feels like? That feels like the person who's in a long-term relationship being cheated on and trying to justify saying, but they've been such a nice person all this time, and I know they're going to have my back in the long run. We're going to let them have their fun. That's what that feels like. That feels like a defeated statement from the LPGA to me.
We're going to see a parallel female LIV in the next 5 years.
You think so?
Yeah.
I would love that. I'm all for that. I hope that's true.
I think that's going to happen, because the more I think about it, it's not that, listen, the whole team aspect, maybe it's not a bad product, but it really just had a shitty, rollout, because the concept.
I really don't like the team aspect.
pause. Fill those 48 spaces with the top 48 in the world. So maybe this is their supercharged fall where all they have to do is show up for elevated events and this. And then the other events are stepping stones to get to elevated events, which then get you eligible for live. I mean, there could be this whole restructuring of because that's how it might.
Yeah.
The coverage on Golf Central right now is borderline somber.
Yeah,
and that's what bugs me about it.
It's clear what side they were on this whole time. That's been apparent this entire time.
Well, but PGA
but we get
Tour
it. We've already talked about that. We get it.
They've been doing that for years, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. What bugs me though is the tone is almost like I said, like somebody died, and I see the other side of it. Like I do see that there's interesting. I'm not a 9/11 survivor or anything like that, right? Like I do understand about the families and some of you can't break those connections. But at the same time, it's a big world, and I'm not saying that they can't feel that way, but I'm just excited about what this might mean for the game, for, Cooper Rose, who is upstairs screaming right now because she's not in a bad way. She's just a freaking nut job. She's going to be 3 years old soon. And is there going to be a live tour for her to play on? Or, what is the LPGA tour going to look like if she chooses to play golf and then she'll be a champion, just like Rose Zhang? But so it could mean good things. It could mean big things. I do think it will, because there was already kind of some rumors and scuttlebutt around. And maybe that's the other part where it's like the PGA Tour sees that, like, well, damn, they sniped, a handful of ours. What if Nelly Korda goes for $400 million? I mean, she's the biggest name in female golf.
She is
as far as about marketability. Nobody's playing better golf than Rose.
She's the most recognizable name by far.
Right. I mean, Nike signed her. She was the first LPGA Tour person to get signed by player to get signed by TaylorMade at the level that like DJ and Colin, those guys are. Her and Tony Finau are going to be paired up this fall in the co-ed event. So like, she's that name. What happens if all of a sudden her and Lexi decide to say, I'm done grinding for pennies on the dollar for what these men are getting. Let's go get our bag, girl. Like,
so you think maybe do you think, because you alluded to it earlier, you just alluded to another aspect of it. Do you think the fall now turns into more of an exhibition time of year where we see more co-ed events eventually? We see more of these team events or 3-round events, or like more creative styles of golf competition?
I honestly think that there might be a long-term way that the live model becomes the fall. The fall.
Which I'm fine with that being the fall model. Like that mixes it up
for the top guys.
Yeah, that mixes it up. I'm fine with that. That's fun. That's different. I don't want that to be golf 24/7 throughout the year. Like in the end, I still want it to be 4 rounds, 2-round cut events, single guy. Like, sorry, I didn't mean by single guys, but like individuals playing for themselves by themselves. Like that's still the golf that I want to watch.
And I mean, you put it on in the fall, and you don't want to fuck with football. So what do you do? 54 holes is perfect. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that leads you right into your football weekend. You only want to do like 9 events. So
I kind of like that, honestly, for the fall.
Right? They should just put me in charge. But I'm trying to look at the excitement of it. But I love the vitriol coming. I love that Colin Morikawa, and because of social media, they do have a louder voice than players used to. And I do think that Jay is just knowing that this is going to suck. It's kind of like when you're the boss, you have to fire people sometimes, or you have to make decisions that are unpopular. It's, he was not shy about how I want to see how it shakes out. I mean, I get that everybody's pissed off. They're blindsided. I don't think anybody was entitled to a tip on this. Again, I go back to my point of I'm pro Jay in the sense of he made a call that was completely within his whatever purview to make. And if you disagree with his, the way he went about it, okay, that's fair enough. That's understandable. But I also want to wait and see, what does this turn out to be? Like, is there anything that does change, or does all this mean is they're going to create a path? Because also, what if it's like nothing changes? We're just going to create this reapplication process for players if they want to come back. So, and then because then that would mean it's not like you're going to automatically get reinstated, like we said. So it's not like these guys are like, all right, come on, DJ, you pick your 20 events that you want. They're going to maintain their loyalty. And I could understand why some of these guys, especially at the RBC Canadian, are like, what the fuck, dude? You're like, we are the grinders. These are the weeks that, we really make our bones and try to get into that next tier so we can get into these elevated events. And so I can understand they would be pissed off, but I think if he's protecting them, that's fine. And I think by making this reapplication process, he is. So that could be it too. They could just be saying like, oh no, Liv's going to keep doing. Liv's going to live. And if they want to let it fold, then we'll have some, then the public investment fund's going to be fine because we just signed on the dotted line with them. Players, you can come back if you want. Like Chase Koepka, you weren't on the PGA Tour in the first place. No offense.
He doesn't deserve to be
phenomenal golfer. But I mean, guys like that who weren't on the tour yet, or maybe they just got their status, like Mito Pereira. It's like, dude, I mean, you might have to sit out a year and forfeit some money, just like everybody else.
So what about those guys who joined Live late, like Mito Pereira, like guys like that who came in on the second, third wave, and now this hits, and now they might have if they have to do you think it was worth it for those 6 months of Live play?
Depends on the size of the check.
Which we don't know, I guess. So I guess
right. If we learned anything through all this, it's that money.
Well, Mito Pereira specifically was a guy who was on the rise over here on the PGA. Like he was a name that people were getting to recognize. He was on the rise.
Yeah, but also we saw in full swing what a communal guy he is, and how it was him and Neiman. Like they went kind of like brothers. Sure. And there's more than we're fans of the game. We think that the trophy is all there is to it. These guys are thinking like, that's generational wealth.
Yeah,
like my great grandbaby's already rich. You know what I'm saying? To quote Beyonce. So I've been trying all day to get worked up over it. I was shocked when I heard.
I think everyone was shocked. Nobody expected this coming. Nobody.
I think the contrarian in me is just trying to poke holes in everybody else's boohoo fest because I want to step back and be like, it's a fucking sport. But for a lot of these guys, it's their livelihood, and I do get that. I just think that Moynihan was just getting his ass kicked, quite frankly.
And he still is, and he's quietly, still going to be for a little while.
We said it right here. Liv's done. Liv might be done. I mean, they really might just say, "All right, cool. I can take off this stupid ass 4 Aces shirt. I can throw away the range goats."
Because now they've backed up their money now. Is what they've done.
Although were these teams worth anything? I don't think they were yet.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think they've
the public investment fund owned everything, and so they own the entire Live Golf entity, which is why it could also go the other direction. They could turn it into like the new Q school. It's like it's the fall.
Which we had theorized about that being an option at some point.
Relegation style.
Yeah, we've theorized. Honestly, we've theorized about all these possibilities. We just didn't think it was coming now. Is really what it comes down to.
I mean, maybe you take like the top, the first 25 out of the FedEx Cup, and then the first 25 out of the Corn Ferry top 25. So that'd be 26 and 50. You put those 50 together for a Live ball, and the top 25 of there, they go on.
Sure.
I mean,
it's your extra. It's your bonus series. Basically.
Okay, real quick. Mike Wan, CEO of USGA, like most of the golf world, we were surprised by today's PGA Tour world. Blah blah blah. He's happy about it. Although it does sound like a little bit of couched. This is wonderful.
In these last 12 minutes that we have here, here's the 3 kind of talking points I want to pose to you because I found these very interesting. Ben Griffin, a mid-level player on the PGA Tour. I mean, I think that's fair to say. It was a guy that we've mentioned on the show plenty of times before, fantasy-wise. But it's not like he's gone out there and
UNC guy, I think, right? Yep.
I'm not sure where he's from, but either way, he's active on TikTok, and he was active today. He's not up at the RBC Canadian Open, and he put out on TikTok that one of his big questions with this players meeting that Jay Moynihan held in Toronto today was that for the players who aren't there, is there a way that they can zoom in so that they can be part of it? And he was told no, according to him. If you weren't at this tournament this week, you were not able to be part of this groundbreaking player meeting that was taking place where they were getting the information.
Ben Griffin might not be getting his player meeting, but I can tell you right now, Rory and the boys are going to get a sit down.
So they might be getting a private sit down, but what he was saying was that there was no live meeting Zoom option available. They weren't even letting people take their phones into the meeting. So I feel from Ben Griffin's perspective, I feel his kind of frustration with that from his perspective where he is for sure.
If your company has an emergency staff meeting and it happens to be your day off, okay. I mean,
I have access to Microsoft Teams whether it's my day off or not.
That's fair.
I can log
They
in
could
if
have
I want
zoomed.
to.
They could have zoomed these guys in. I understand why
Yeah.
you don't want to, though, for security purposes or just for confidentiality,
Sure.
or for maybe because it's Jay's way of saying, "I get you're pissed. You know where my office is. This is where I'm going to be on this date. If you want to come see me, come see me. Can we zoom? No, you can't zoom in. This ain't Burger
Sure.
King. You don't get to have it your way. I'm in charge. Coach called a team meeting. If you happen to be off, I'm not mad at you for not being here. Come see me anytime. I doubt accessibility to Jay is that easy for the players, especially
Yeah,
maybe
I
a
doubt it
mid-level
too.
player.
Especially for a player, unfortunately. I don't mean any
I think
disrespect, but a player like Ben Griffin, I'm sure, does not have easy accessibility to Jay.
But also send your questions to the office. There's the overreaction is also because it's the middle of nothing. There's nothing going on. The NBA Finals is off, and so the NHL playoffs is a wash. Vegas is going to win this thing in a fucking walk. Get it together, Florida. Florida's going to Florida, but
Florida's always
we
going to
want
Florida.
this to be. It is big, but I want to wait and see what it actually turns out to be because it could be bigger, it could be nothing. So I think we're just chomping at the biggest breaking news because it is breaking news and it is groundbreaking.
Well, this is bigger than just breaking news. For sure.
What it really is. It's a lot of people who they feel like they're entitled to apologies and whatnot, and that's fine. But it's also like we really thrive off of drama, and so I think we hype. I think we catastrophize things. We hyperbole everything. That's not a verb, but anyways, we make hyperbole out of everything because it is fun. I like I said, I'm excited. I don't think I'm too worked up, but I do understand why Ben Griffin is worked up, and I'd be pissed off too. If my company, if my company was behaving like this, I would also reach for that level of I live my life on a need to know basis. I just assume I get information as I need to know it, and if I want it, then I just hunt it down until I realize that I'm not supposed to have it.
So then the other semi-related, because I got two more topics to discuss here. What do you make out of if the rumors here are true that the Greg Norman, the CEO of Live Golf, if it's true that he had no clue this was coming, was left in the dark and found out like the rest of us? What do you make of that? Because to me, that just means that it's exactly what we've been theorizing for a while. Honestly, that Greg Norman was just the temporary face of something because he was going to rile people up, and that they were going to move a more business savvy CEO into place eventually, anyways.
That I think that was part of it, where we always kind of knew that maybe if this thing gets off its feet, he's not going to be the commissioner long term, or whatever. I don't make much of it other than everybody's got a boss, and again,
agreed.
I think it's also Jay's way of saying to Greg, "You're not on my level." Like I
fair.
Seriously, like it's like you don't.
You may have the title of the CEO of the company we're about to merge with, but that doesn't mean you have a right to be in this room.
We're not merging with you. We're merging with the company that owns you. I mean, this is again, this a lot. It's just business, which I know dick about. But I mean, I know I've seen Pretty Woman enough to know that when business takeovers happen like this, you just pound on the person until they have to beg please. But even in Pretty Woman, Richard Gere throws him a bone at the end. Sure, and I think that's kind of what was happening here with the Public Investment Fund, because maybe they really did have him against the ropes financially, and they're like, nah, we're just going to wait this one out. But they're not. We want them to be in it for personal reasons. These guys are businessmen. They're business professionals. They're not in the business of letting feelings and emotions run. It's calculated in. It's definitely calculated in.
Well, because you got to keep your people.
Yeah, there's got to be certain things that it's like it's any negotiation, things that'll fly, things that won't fly, and maybe it was the Public Investment Fund saying, not a word to anybody, because if this leaks, it's all over, and we're going to part ways, and we're just going to continue to bury you in whatever financial way we want to. I don't think that Liv was ever going to be a superior product. I just think they probably had deeper war chest, literally speaking.
Of course they did. We all knew that from the start, which brings up so then this brings up my last talking point here, and I bring this up because I was listening to Rich Eisen earlier, and he was
Rich Eisen, damn light.
Very fired up about this topic. He hates that this happened. He is basically calling this hypocrisy on Jay Moynihan and the PGA. It's going like he's right. He's not a fan of this, and I get it. He had some solid arguments, he brought up one interesting argument that I wanted to ask you about, in that this somewhat opens the door for a tournament to be created, a random tournament that is just basically based off a massive live purse style, where the players can't ignore it. It's not officially considered the fifth major or a major tournament, but it takes almost the status as a major because players want to play for the purse. And that gets introduced into the formula of the schedule, and it potentially takes away from the status of the existing four majors that we have known forever. Do you see that as being a possibility now, where money is just going to speak not just truth for these players, but it's going to speak louder than history for these players when they go out there for these tournaments? Like, do you see the possibility of a tournament being created that's going to rival the majors just because of the value of the money that is being offered to the winnings?
Yes. And I think it's going to be offered to like 25 guys. I think they are going to make some Super Bowl of golf, but they're going to make it very clear that two things. A, in the life of all sport, there was a moment where, something was considered great and then something else joined it. I mean, the women's game has 5 majors.
Yeah.
All right. But I also think that you're going to see the purse of the players all of a sudden jump even higher. I think that's going to become, the PGA Tour is going to insist that becomes the true financial flag bearer for professional golf from the tour's perspective. I also think you're going to see some of this new capital injection go to the other majors. Augusta National, Fred Ridley already came out and said he loves it when people can finally come together and decide to put down their guns. He didn't say that. He said, but basically come together and join forces and kind of unify the game. Sure. I'm excited for what this might be, blah, blah, blah. We always remain dedicated, because I do think they know they're going to get a cut of this pie somehow if they want it. I mean, I could see Augusta National looking down at that and being like, please get that out of my face. We're going to remain as independent as possible, because if they do that, the PGA of America, the PGA Championship is going to get this injection as well. So I do think that there could be a room for a new kind of Super Bowl type golf event. And I would welcome it if there was some objective way of saying, like, here it is, this is going to be the top 50 in the world for 54 holes, or the top 50. And there might be some homage to live, or it might be something completely new again, or nothing changes but the purses, and maybe, like I said, some of this media rights agreement. I think that's going to be the big key from, that's going to be the big unanswered question until we find out what happens with that. Because that was a huge gripe of Phil and some of the other people. And Tiger acknowledged it at the Genesis when he was talking about how I said, like, he kind of backed into agreeing with Phil. He just did it in a more diplomatic way.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not necessarily that Phil's been wrong this whole time. He's had some very valid gripes and points from his standpoint as a golfer. Like, it's not that he's been wrong. He's just been a dick. It's all he's been. He's just been a dick about it.
If Shipnuck doesn't publish, the whole, I think if Phil doesn't say the whole scary motherfuckers thing.
Yeah.
Like, they killed Khashoggi and they're scary motherfuckers. But, I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity here, and you got to take the money while it's offered to you. And then everybody started asking each other, what would you do? And, Charles Barkley's like, $250 million. I punch my auntie, that kind of shit. That's my Charles Barkley. That's my Chuck. I think ever since that kind of that first, as soon as that leaked, that's when the morality game came into it.
Sure.
It will always people
comes into play again now.
So are people lighting their hair on fire in the soccer world because all of a sudden the public investment fund, same people, they're buying up Ronaldo, they're buying up, Messi, they're buying up all these players, and some of the older ones who would normally come over to the MLS at the tail end of their career to have a swan song are getting a much cushier deal down in Saudi Arabia. So,
but that's the thing, they were when the PIF started buying those teams up, there was a lot of backlash from those European countries. And it does beg to question.
But has soccer really suffered?
So in the end, no, I don't think soccer has suffered.
Golf.
It was some big headlines and news stories for a little bit, but no one stopped going to watch soccer.
I get why these guys on Golf Central are somber. I understand.
I do too.
It's the end of an era.
Yeah,
now,
this was a monumental day in golf. That's why I don't think it was outlandish for me to say this is possibly the biggest news drop ever in the golf world. Other than because this is exactly how you've alluded to the story before. This is exactly how the PGA was created in the first place.
Yeah, disruption creates, and just like D-Day, let's wait till D-Day +1. Let's see what tomorrow holds. I understand that they're going to mourn tonight, and it is the end of an era. Speaking of D-Day +1, do you know who stormed the beaches of Normandy? I don't know stormed, but who arrived at Normandy on D-Day +1?
Are you talking about like an individual person, or
yes, I am.
Then no, enlighten me, sir.
Bobby Jones.
Oh, you know what? I did not know that.
At 40 years old, he insisted on re-enlisting in the military, and he said he didn't want any kind of cushy. He was buddies with one of his old officers, and he wanted back in, and he was like, I don't want some cushy bullshit job. Like, don't put me out at a training camp. All right. And so he ended up in D-Day, and he ended up D-Day +1. You'll hear about it on This Buds for You tomorrow morning.
D-Day +1. Sounds like a fucking wedding invite.
Did you go? Hold on. Did you go to school?
Yes, I went to Yes, I went to school.
That's how they marked the days. D-Day +1, D-Day +2.
Oh, see, I've never been privy to that information. I guess maybe I didn't pay attention enough.
So D-Day +1 was June 7th, and that's when Bobby Jones arrived. And then he spent a couple months interrogating German prisoners.
Hey, Bobby Jones.
Well, he was a lawyer.
Never disappointing.
No.
Look, there's bound to be.
You had no idea you were getting your Bobby Jones history today.
You threw me off at the Bobby Jones.
Comes full circle.
But you know what?
Eastlake, Live.
It wouldn't be a Divots and Pivots show without you throwing in a random story. And hey, I want to really acknowledge this because I think this is a milestone for the show.
Okay.
This is season 2, episode 23. All right, we've been at this for over a year and a half. Well, over a year, roughly a year and a half, probably at this point. First episode, I think I'd have to go back and check the tape. First episode, no camp references. I am fucking proud of you, bud.
It's because I'm sick of work.
I love it. Look, there's going to be a lot of news dropping over the next couple days. We're going to keep a track of it. Tune into us next Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Not only are we going to be getting ready for the U.S. Open to follow that episode, but there's going to be more news to talk about with this subject. So expect half U.S. Open fantasy, half PGA, DP, Live, whatever the hell they decide to call this news for a while. We're going to be talking about this for a while. There's going to be raw emotions with it all. Tune in every Tuesday, 8 o'clock here on Fantasy Sports Corporation to the start of your tea time every Tuesday. Get ready for the Plus Money podcast. I think they're on at 10 tonight, so get ready. Tune in. Stay around for that. We'll see you next week. We love you. Go golf. Whatever else you feel.
End the show.
End show. See you later, guys.